Hi everyone, welcome back to the channel. Today's video is going to be a deep dive into something super powerful for Excel power users and automation lovers. We're going to look at how to create personal lambdas and then save them within our Personal Macro Workbook and use VBA to load these into any workbooks automatically at the click of a button. If you've ever created a lambda function and thought, oh, I've got to copy this into every workbook I use, then this tutorial is going to change everything for you. I will quickly cover the basics of lambdas within this video. If you've not seen my deep dive into lambdas video, then it's definitely worth a watch before you learn how to execute those with Visual Basics. Okay, so if we do a quick recap of what a lambda is, we could write lambda tab, we could define x as our parameter, and then our calculation could simply be x times 2. And when we close our parenthesis, we're just going to feed into that formula x is equal to 10, close our parenthesis, and then we get 10 times 2 is 20. So that's a recap of a lambda function. And then in a previous video we looked at how we could add those into the name manager so that they're reusable. We have an example here where you can see I've got my own function called the tax rate, and if we have a look, that's just looking at the sales value here and calculating this tax rate. The way that works is within the name manager, we have this lambda function set where sales is our variable. We say if the sales are less than 4,000, we want 0.1 or 10% as our tax rate. If the sales are less than 10,000 but above 4,000, we want 0.2 or 20%, and then anything else becomes 0.3 or 30%. So we stored that as the function named tax rate, and then that's why we're able to use this function here, which just asks for a variable called sales. Now we also looked in the previous video that if we were to copy this to a new workbook and paste, then that lambda becomes available within the workbook. However, what if we've got lots of lambdas within our workbook and we've got lots of lambdas that we reuse across multiple workbooks on a regular basis? How can we automatically add all of those lambdas that we use regularly into any workbook that we want using a single button? Well, the answer is we can do that via VBA. So we're going to have a look in this video at how we can automatically add those into any workbook with some VBA code, and we're going to link that to a nice button within the ribbon for easy execution. For this, we're going to use our Personal Macro Workbook. This is a good place to store these lambda functions because by default this workbook will be available in all workbooks that you open. It's a hidden workbook that we can store the code in and then use it to inject those lambdas into what other workbooks we have open. Our first step for this is making sure that we can get into Visual Basics. If you're new to Visual Basics, then please make sure you've got the Developer tab available on the ribbon. If you've not, simply go to Customize the ribbon, and then in the Main tabs section on the right hand side, tick the Developer tab. Once that's ticked, click OK, and you'll be able to see it up in your ribbon like this. Then we're going to go into Visual Basics. The shortcut for that is Alt and F11. Once we're within here, the Visual Basics project window, we can see at the moment I have personal.xlsb. This is my Personal Macro Workbook. If you don't see that there, that means we need to create it. To create it, I'm just going to come out of the Visual Basics window. We're going to go to Record Macro. Here, where we have the option of where we want to store the macro in, make sure instead of this workbook, you click Personal Macro Workbook. Click OK. Then this is recording. You can simply press Stop Recording straight away. That will have made the Personal Macro Workbook available for you. So I'm just going to go back into Visual Basics now. We're going to go Alt and F11. Here we can see we've got the Personal Macro Workbook. If it's not expanded, you can just double click on it. And within the modules, if you're new to this, you might just see Module 1, which is the recording we just did there. I'm just going to remove this module for now because I don't need that. That was just a demonstration to show how we can create the Personal Macro Workbook. So we can close Visual Basics again, and then within any window within Excel you can go to View and Unhide. In the Unhide window options you can now see we've got this hidden Personal Workbook Click OK on that. This is going to take us into our personal workbook. You can see we're in this here, and this is within the Excel Start folder. So what we're going to do is we're going to create a worksheet within here, and we're going to call it LAMBDA Funcs, short for LAMBDA Functions. You can call this sheet whatever you like, doesn't matter. And then within this sheet, we're going to set up an area for names of our functions, the formulas associated to those functions. And then we could also have a comments section where we can just use free text to describe what those lambdas do. So for this, I'm just going to add tax rate as our name, and then our formula. I'm going to go back into the LAMBDA workbook. I'm going to go to the Name Manager, or Control and F3, and then within the tax rate named manager, I'm going to copy this formula, and then back to our personal workbook. Within the formula section, I'm going to paste in that lambda. Press enter on that. We're going to get a calc error because it's a lambda and we've not fed in an actual value associated to sales. You can test that theory by just saying sales is £100 within parenthesis at the end. You can see that now works, giving us the 0.1% tax rate for 4,000 or less sales. So we'll just get rid of that. And within the comments section, I'm just going to put this checks the values of sales and applies the associated tax percentage based off the tax thresholds. Okay, so now how can we get this lambda directly into a new workbook using Visual Basics? From any of the windows, we can press Alt and F11 or go to the Developer tab, Visual Basics, and then within our personal workbook, we're going to go to Modules and we're going to go to Insert Module. We can call this module whatever we like. I'm going to call it LAMBDAs test. I've already got a LAMBDA module set up, so that was just to show you how to create a module. Just going to remove this. We're going to go to LAMBDAs, which is my module that I've set up. Within this top subroutine here, this is just simply calling the add lambda functions routine, which I've got below, and I'm feeding into that subroutine below this name, and this name is just my sheet name that we gave within the personal workbook here. We could add more sheets in below this. We could call that function, and then we just need to feed in other sheet names within the double quotes, like so. You can have as many as you want here. Just going to remove that. Okay, so within our second subroutine here, we're receiving sheet as a string, which is this sheet name above. We're just setting variables of WS for worksheets, RNG for range, I as a number or long. We've set the worksheet equal to our personal.xlsb, and then the specific sheet name within that workbook is linked through to the initial subroutine that we're running, in this case LAMBDA Funcs. We're setting the range as within that worksheet, range A1, and then the current region being used. And then we're saying if the row count within that range is less than 2, we can exit the sub, because we know that our first row within that range is headers. So by default, if the range is 1, we know we've only got headers and no actual lambdas, so we can just simply leave the subroutine. Otherwise, if it's more than 1, we know that we must have some lambdas listed below in our table. So then we're going to just, to enable the code not to display all the steps on the screen, we're going to turn screen updating off. We're going to say if there's any errors, resume the next step. And then we're going to say within a loop for I, so remember we defined I as a number above. So for I equals 2 to the amount of rows within our count, we're going to set nm is equal to what's in our range, and our cells function asks for a row and a column. So we're going to pass in within our loop row 2 to however many we've got. I'll step through this after so you can see it in action. We're going to say row 1 for this, which would be I, column 1 within our range, which would be this, so A2, value. So we're going to get tax rate as our result from that. That's going to be our name, or NM. Then our formula associated to that is going to be the similar. It's going to be range.cells I. So we're pulling formula from there. And then our formula, we're just going to trim out any characters that would make it invalid. So we've got some nested replaces here to get rid of spaces and invalid characters. Then we're going to use the workbook.names add function. Our name within our name manager is going to be NM. So this is what we defined above from the first cell in our range. So tax rate. Then we're going to move on, just got an if statement here saying that if this calculation here doesn't start with an equals, then add an equals into it so that we don't break the formula. Or if the user's already put the equals in front of the formula like I have here, then we don't need to add an equals. And then we're back to the end of the loop saying move on to the next I. So we started off at 2. Our range only goes to 2. So at this point the loop would end and we'd be moving on to re-enabling screen updating and ending the subroutine. If we were to step through this line by line using F8 just so you can see what's happening. So we're going to step through here. This is going to call this subroutine, and then so you can see here we've got if the range count is less than 2, but you can see our range count is equal to because we've got 2 rows within our range. So we're carrying on down, and now you can see I is equal to 2 in our first instance. And our NM becomes tax rate. Our formula becomes that lambda in here. We've replaced the characters. Next I equals 3, which we don't have. Then we're stepping out. So if we close that, we're going to go to a new workbook using Control and N. Just going to go to the name manager using Control and F3. You can see we've got no name managers. So if we press Alt and F11, then we're just going to press F5 to execute all of this code here. Then we're going to close the Visual Basics window. We're going to go back into the name manager. The name manager, by the way, is held within Formulas Name Manager if you're not using the keyboard shortcut or a quick access toolbar. And now you can see we've got the tax rate defined here. Now our final step to piece this all together so that we don't need to go into Visual Basics to execute that code every time. We're going to go up to the quick access toolbar or the ribbon, depending on where you want to add a button to. But at the moment, you can see I've got this ribbon called Ben, and within here, I've got a button called Add All Lambda Functions. So if I was to go into a new workbook, into my Ben ribbon, into my Add All Lambda Functions, I'm just going to press Control and F3 so that you can see there's nothing here at the moment. And then if we press Add All Lambda Functions, press Control and F3 again to go into the name manager, you can see that's automatically added in that. The way I did this, you can see full step-by-step in my other video that I've done showing customizing the ribbon and adding Visual Basics buttons associated to those ribbon items. Or quickly, just went customize the ribbon by right-clicking on it. And on the right-hand side within main tabs, I went to Ben. I created a new section called LAMBDAs, and I added this in. To do that, I found the macros on the left pane. I found my Add LAMBDAs here, selected it, clicked in the right grouping on the right, clicked Add. It's added it. I renamed it using this box like that, and then I attached this little cloud symbol to it and clicked OK. And then that appeared there. And just to illustrate, this is fairly dynamic now. If we go back to our personal workbook, type in name, name 1, name 2, and then if we were to type equals 1, equals 2, equals 3, I'm just going to put tests along here, not that it matters. So now if we go back into that new workbook I created, Control and F3, you can see we just have the tax rate. Let's press that Add All Lambda Functions again. And then if we go back into the name manager, Control and F3, You can actually, those 3 additional name manager entries have appeared. I've obviously only put simple formulas associated to those, but you could write lambdas attached to them. And that's it. So Excel's lambda function is extremely powerful, but where it really shines is where you can reuse these lambdas across all your workbooks with the click of a button. I hope you enjoyed this video. Please remember to hit the like button if you found it useful. Also, remember to subscribe to the channel for more weekly updates. Let me know in the comments what kind of lambdas you use across your workbooks. Thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next one.